Well, I'd like to welcome everybody back to the Bosshole Chronicles. This is your co-host, John Brewer, and welcome back to part 2 of our discussion with Dr. Bill Schaninger. You heard in part 1 a little bit more about his work, his philosophy, and how it has created this wonderful platform that is in the book he co-authored with a number of his colleagues that he had at McKinsey, called Power to the Middle. So make sure you go into the show notes, check out all the links. In this episode, we're going to learn more about really where that all came from and get a little bit further back into his history, his origins, if you will, as a manager. And I love it because that's where Sarah picks it up, asking Bill if he was ever a boss hole. You know, we got to really explore that. You know, search for our inner boss hole and make sure it doesn't come out. And Bill gives us some great perspective on that. So make sure you check out the show notes, look at the links, check out the book, and let's jump into part 2 of our episode and discussion with Dr. Bill Schaninger. The Bosshole Chronicles are brought to you by real.good.ventures, a talent optimization firm helping organizations diagnose their most critical people and execution issues with world-class analytics. Make sure to check out all the resources in the show notes and be sure to follow us and share your feedback. Enjoy today's episode.
I'm pretty confident too. Our listeners will probably want to hear from you again. In whatever next chapter. You've just recently retired from McKinsey, so there may be other opportunities. I'm sure probably are in your future. Have you ever worked for or been a boss hole yourself?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I'll tell you what I was guilty of, particularly earlier in my career.
Yeah.
So my first job was I ran a residential psychiatric treatment center. Right. I had been running, I ran long an undergraduate because I ran out of athletic eligibility before I was done.
Okay.
And then I started working at this place near here called Kids Peace National Centers for Kids in Crisis. It's great. I mean, it's doing God's work.
Yeah.
And the guy who hired me walked me out onto the street and said, "You see that building up there? It's yours. The 20 kids in there, yours. The staff in there, yours. Everything that happens in there, whether you're here or not, yours." Now, I internalized that, which you could argue is a good thing. The downside, I also personalized all of it. So it was like, you're either in my crew or you are not in my crew. I mean, I was like close to W, right? Which is like, you're either with us or you're against us.
Yes.
Of course, I was 23. Okay. Not the president of the United States. But, this idea that it was personal, right? And so the people who were in the crew, I would lay down on coals for, right? I really liked the idea that like all the people who were my assistants, got the next units up. They were well trained. We invested a ton in them. Everybody covered for everybody. That part was great. A little incestuous, honestly, and a little intense, but great. When I got to McKinsey, pretty much the same model, just in growing camps, until it got to be clear that my peers were tiring of the Bill's crew and everybody else's crew.
Sure.
And then it became very clear that actual leverage comes from a community of people who choose to do things together and collaboratively.
Yes.
Without any real formal repercussions. It is purely a choice construct. And once you get to that, where you really do have a coalition of the willing, okay, then it's pretty amazing. But that requires a level of leadership that assumes they have no power, right?
Okay.
I think in the earliest days, I was very, very aware of my power, no matter what it was, and or like the protecting of my crew.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But there was very clear in and out. And I don't think that works at scale.
Right.
It certainly doesn't work if you want to have the flexibility to move people around, because it's so much about cult of personality. There wasn't a way to lead the place. There was my way, and I was like blind in the night. I mean, literally, it's why I went back to grad school to get an MBA, because I was so certain that while we were all loved what we were doing, I had no idea what I was doing.
Right.
Sure.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, I might want to learn something about this because I have a feeling I'm doing this very badly.
Well, but as we say, nobody is born to be a boss hole. So at a young age, there's bravado, there's excitement, there's intensity, there's competition. And that's not unusual. I think you're saying this, Bill, and I know I am thinking, oh yeah, I totally remember that. And then we have now the benefit of education, wisdom, years, pain, and realizing there's a better way. for sure. And emerging from the Bosshole Zone, that's what we're all about. How do we help managers avoid that and move out of it? But if I may, when you start to think about power to the middle, by the way, that's the title of the book, and it's going to be in the show notes. Go in there and make sure you order it and get it and enjoy it. It's going to take a different kind of middle manager. That's what it is all about. I don't want that to be lost. We talk about reinventing the manager. We've been talking about that for 2 years. I'm speaking at 3 different, different conferences on that this week. Reinventing the manager, power to the middle is about a new way to think about middle managers.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, just the idea of thinking through the role, helping people see their own purpose in the role.
Yeah.
Right. Not just assuming that everybody's individual purpose is the company's purpose. It's both arrogant and then naive.
Right.
But they have to be able to see it in there,
Yeah.
Focusing, making sure the person's okay first before the employee. Really viewing performance management not as the system or the form, but as the day in and day out coaching that helps people know how they're doing.
Yeah.
Right. Really viewing the idea that being an exporter of talent and creator of opportunities is the real upside. You actually get more than you give when that's working well. That sort of stuff. Being, instead of being someone who tries to covet data and, keep it from people, actually using all the data you have to try to explain variability. Why did that group do well and that group didn't? Instead of going, I wonder why that was, and coming up with some simpleton solution, actually using the data you have to figure it out,
Yeah.
And then maybe most importantly, a natural offshoot of cost cutting or dramatic change in work is saying, well, some of these tasks probably shouldn't be done anymore. The best of the best of the middle managers can pull the job apart, look at their task. So it's, unbundling and then rebundling, but not going to do it anymore, going to do that a whole lot less. We're going to take the variability out of that one. That one we're going to let software do, push it back together. Okay, what's left with here? What can we be doing more of? That might be the actual superpower. Can you pull the job apart?
Right.
Starting with, does it line up with purpose? Is it clearly an offshoot of strategy?
Yeah.
Does the person see how they fit? What task can we take out because it's just dumb? Right? What can we narrow down in variability? What can we tech enable? Got it. Now, what can we do here with a person?
Yeah,
and really add some unique value, and let's target our coaching there.
Yeah,
that's
exciting.
That's
that's an exciting perspective for sure. And we will be right back.
With employee disengagement at its highest level in 9 years, your company can't afford to miss the mark when it comes to optimizing your hiring, management, and team performance practices. At its lowest level, employee turnover costs you $11,000 per person. And those are dollars you can easily save with the right set of people analytics. Real Good Ventures is a talent optimization consultancy specializing in world-class analytics specific to your people and the critical role they play within your organization. Gain confidence in your hiring practices. Keep the boss holes from driving your talent away. Design your teams for flawless execution and create a culture that offers meaning and fulfillment. Real Good Ventures has a family of validated diagnostic tools specific to the human aspect of business, because we know that all business issues are people issues. Visit us today at www.realgoodventures.com and bring meaning and fulfillment back into your workplace.
Okay, let's get back to the program.
Well, and that's a great checklist to use for assessing the capabilities of of your managers. Like, is this person capable of doing these things?
Yeah, there's in the book we have these shifts, and I think if someone were looking for a frame, just thinking through, is the person capable of making these shifts? Not just being the person who protects the past, but thinks about what's possible.
Yes.
Not looking to run away from the data, but use the data to explain, that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
I think that's a useful starting point. I also just think for so many people, most people want to do a good job, come into grips, but in the back of their mind, they probably know there's some things they're not good at.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
And if they take the leadership responsibility seriously, they might even feel like they're leaving some people down, right? Or not doing everything they can. So if you can start by saying, the first thing we're going to cheer is the humility to acknowledge we're not good enough.
Right.
And the courage to do something about it. Why not just start with that, right?
Yeah.
Say, actually, we're going to applaud you for raising your hand and going, yeah, no, I need help.
Right.
And then the willingness to go do something about it, as opposed to so much of this being egoic and protection. Like, I have to have an answer or an excuse for everything. Well, then you're like playing ping pong, which is exhausting.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
This is totally worth the wait. Our listeners don't know that we had a few opportunities to connect, and we missed those opportunities. So we've been waiting for this one for a long time. And
Senior partner Bill is a really bad executive assistant Bill. Is how that works out.
I don't know about that, but I do know that there's so much gold in this short conversation today and in the book. I think for me, you touched on all the key points that I was hoping we would talk about in the book. There's one other question though I have for you, and it goes back to a conversation you, John, and I had a time ago. You talked about preserving managers, the good ones, the ones who can do all the things you just described, keeping them where they are. And I think there's some thought shift that needs to happen there for leaders. We can't just keep putting people, promoting people upwards.
Oh yeah.
Can we end on that?
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a chapter on this early around the person who took the job and the person who didn't take the job.
Yeah.
And just because I like shouting it out, the case in the book on the person who took the job and then quit is named Kelsey. That's actually my partner, Becky Kepner.
Okay.
who ran an education center, a for-profit education center in New York, and loved it and was good at all the things that we needed them to do. And they're like, okay, but now the next step is you have to go be a regional manager. Disaster. She hated it. The tenuous connection is what gave her the juice to work 7 days a week, to work all kinds of hours, right? I mean, I equivalently, I think we were talking about, I served a global refiner for a long time, and they had, 4 or 5 of these world scale plants. So like when those plants come down, the price of gas moves immediately. Well, they had folks in there who were really good at running a plant, but felt like the only way they were going to become a real executive was to go into one of these regional or global VP roles. What a mistake.
Right.
To a person, they were all terrible at it. They were wonderful at running a big plant, which is like, 1,200, 1,500, 2,000 employees, depending on where you are in the world. I mean, you're like the mayor of a company town at that point, right? And it matters. It matters so much. Union relations, external relations, community affairs. It's a big deal.
Yes.
Why would we take them out when we found somebody who could do it? And this is where we talk about critical roles is not synonymous with hierarchy.
Right.
You have roles in the place that are critical. Like some of the big box retailers get this. They spend way more time on the people who are going to be the GMs of their stores than they do people who are, VPs and support roles.
Right.
Because the people running those stores, it just matters. It's where all your issues sit.
That's right.
Right. It's where all your risk sits, but it's also where, the same store sales is made or broke. Right.
Yeah.
And so, for us, it's, hey, if you got somebody who's really good, stop filling their ears up with, oh, you got to get moving now, where these jobs are way stations. And that comes with prestige, influence, authority, and pay while keeping them in the role.
Yep.
Yes. Thank you for those last comments, because I think that's the part that people overlook.
You can make it attractive. You can make it attractive to stay.
So good. Phil, we can't say thank you enough.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I know you're picking up some speaking gigs. You've done a lot of speaking in your career. I'm sure that's probably going to happen more frequently. Is there any place people could catch you?
Yeah, right now. Well, okay. So still, I've got a couple things lined up, which is nice. There's a couple, fun things at Forbes. Diane Brady, who we used to work together, done some nice things there. Got the season coming up, a bunch of CHRO conferences, in the fall.
Yes.
I have a website that's built. I have to just push it now, push go on it. So if you find me on LinkedIn, we'll put it right there.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's SchaningerServices.com. I'm not sure.
Nice.
Or BillSchaninger.com. I have to check. But the point is, it's pretty cool. It's a nice place to like everything I wrote at McKinsey, all the speeches, CBS News had us on, or BBC or whatever, kind of consolidated. I'm actually, it was one of those moments after nearly 23 years to look back and go, wow, that was a lot of Audible That was cool. It was a nice pride moment, right?
That's
absolutely
cool. And then on the book, just for fun, the Audible version of the book, I'm the narrator.
Oh, that's a surprise.
Yeah, I so dislike the voice.
That
was involved in the first book that I'm like, no, we're going to do this. No, in the first book with Scott.
Okay.
Beyond Performance 2.0. I really didn't like the voice. And so when we were doing the contract with Harvard, I was like, well, you guys might rock up with Morgan Freeman, at which point it would be perfectly fine. But
right.
in the absence of that, I think I'd like to do it. Now, that was so ignorant and arrogant on my part. I just assumed I'd walk in and read this thing because, hey, I'm the lead author. It's, it's my ideas.
Right.
Oh, my God, was it hard.
I've heard that. I've heard it's really hard. Yeah.
It was really hard. I gave myself a migraine the first 2 days, blew out my voice. It took I think we were probably 12 to 14 hours to record it. But I'm told I am the ultimate sleep aid. And so, there you go.
Oh,
well, I love your voice. I think you got a great voice for that. And we'll make sure we put links to both the audio book,
awesome,
the regular book, your LinkedIn profile. And if people stay tuned in and follow you, they'll get a sense of when your website launches.
Sure will.
Yeah, sure will. Yeah. Good.
So great. We appreciate you. I appreciate that you're going to continue.
Well, thank you guys. This
work.
Is wonderful. I really enjoyed it.
It was great, Bill. Thank you.
Yep. And we'll see you next time on the Bosshole Chronicles.
We'd like to thank our guest today on the Bosshole Chronicles. And if you have a Bosshole Chronicles story of your own, please email us at mystory@thebossholechronicles.com. Once again, mystory@thebossholechronicles.com. We'll see you again soon.